Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another Lifestyle of Eden podcast. I'm your host, Nick Tognietti. Today, I have a very special guest, Monica Herrera. She is a student of mine in LAU, and we also just have some history regarding Lifestyle of Eden and certain clients that have been in my practice and so forth. But, Monica, thank you so much for joining me.
For sure, for sure. Thank you for having me, Nick.
Absolutely. So, you have a really, really impressive background as it pertains to health, the medical space, things of that nature. Before we talk about kind of like perspectives you have now and where you're going, things of that nature, why don't you give a little bit of a background on you as far as, your medical background and kind of your occupation and the things that you've done in that space and in that field, and we'll go from there.
Definitely. So a little bit about me is I've been a nurse for 18 years. Started off as an ICU nurse in the medical area, and then moved myself to post-surgery, really with clients that had gastric cancer. So took care of those patients for a while, then actually moved into the oncology setting, which it was hard to see because it was actually before they would go into surgery, right? So you would see them
Mm.
when they were really sick, trying to figure out what was going on, what was causing everything. And so they did that for a while and then became a manager over a medical surgical unit. And now I am a director of four units. It's an observation unit, a medical surgery unit, cardiovascular unit, and orthopedic unit.
Wow. Okay, cool. So so for 18 years you've been really deep diving this. What would you say, whether it's ICU, whether it's oncology or any of these other things, what would you say is kind of like your favorite niche down in that in the
Honestly, it had to be my oncology years, just because you really get to build a rapport with the patients, and you see them over and over again, right? From their first round of chemo to their, last round of chemo, or if it's radiation, or if it's not doing neither of them, and they just are coming in for their follow-ups. You get to see a different perspective, and they're just so grateful for the care that you're giving them.
what initially made you even go into this entire space from the get-go?
What was that? One more time.
What made you even go into this entire medical space in the first place?
Man, to tell you the truth, it was just growing up, I saw a lot of, it was funny because I saw a lot of people with health issues, but mostly mental health issues, right? Whether it was a little bit of anxiety to a little bit of depression to severe depressive,
Mm.
and seeing it in every aspect that you can see, right? Wherever I was, because I was in accounting and banking, to be honest with you. And something just told me like, hey, I need to help people, but how do I do that? Where do I start? And so before I actually made the full transition into going into nursing, I said, you know what? Let me just try out as a nursing assistant, because if I can do the dirty work and the groundwork, you can do anything.
Yeah.
And sure enough, took a pay cut and I went into that profession, loved it, and just pushed myself to go through nursing school to get my master's and then to finally get my doctorate degree.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. I mean, ever since I've known you, I've always just kind of known, with your doctorate and just all the history that you've had in the medical space. I mean, there's tons of experience and none of it goes void. I mean, there's a purpose even that's probably yet unrevealed as to why you've learned everything you've learned. But let me ask you this, like throughout that journey the last 18 years, has there, and maybe you did not have this, so don't feel you have to say yes just because I'm asking the question, but have you
Mhm.
ever just kind of felt like, hey, there's more, or we're not doing enough, or there's better approaches, or there, like, has there ever been any kind of like questions or triggers or things in that regard, or not, or no?
Actually, yes. And where I'm at right now in Houston, it is a big, I don't want to say controversial topic, but it is a huge topic, in every single hospital because it's like, if we would have done this or if we could have done this, there would have been minimal amounts of patients coming into the hospital, right? And it's talking about preventative care. And so we're so late in the game because the patients come in, they get their treatment, whether it's surgery, chemo, whatever it may be. And then it's like, okay, well, let me teach you now on how to minimize signs and symptoms because you already have the disease, but let me just teach you on that. That's not preventative care, right? And sometimes we forget to think outside the box and we think, man, these people don't have the resources for proper nutrition or um, things that can help them. But we really need to look at simple things, grounding, just walking, going outside. And so that is what really just drove me to see like there has to be something
Mhm.
more that we can do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like too. I mean, obviously, your sister-in-law was one of my clients, and then your brother-in-law, and then your mother-in-law, and then your son as well, and stuff. And so you've gotten to really have a little bit more of like a hands-on perspective and experience into the more, I don't like labeling things, but if I have to, maybe functional, somebody might say integrative, whatever it is, but more, in my opinion, just root cause approach. Because, one of the things that I always tell people is what gets you healthy will keep you healthy. And
Yes.
so when we talk about preventative care, we first have to talk about root cause reversal. And to talk about root cause reversal, you have to talk about preventative. Like they each do the same thing. Hey, if working out 4 or 5 days a week and eating whole foods and so forth is going to reverse your disease, there's a good chance moving your body and eating whole foods is going to keep you from getting another disease, right? It's preventative in
Mhm.
nature. And
Yep.
so that's like where the 7 pillars come in. So, kind of explain then, well, because I want to ask a two-part question. Number one, when it comes to LEU, so you're in LEU right now. What has LEU kind of done to maybe feed that hunger that you were kind of having? Like, man, there's got to be a different approach, or maybe a more well-rounded approach, or something of that nature. How has it satisfied or led that hunger and filled that hunger? But then also, now learning what you've learned and have already learned what you learned in the medical space for all these years, where do you go? Wow, like I am super glad I went through the conventional space and have learned this up to this point because it's feeding my knowledge or something with this. So, kind of explain those 2 points because I do think that having a lot of the anatomy knowledge and the scientific knowledge and certain things is really good. Not only that, I think it's fantastic actually. But like when it comes to oncology, like you were an oncology
Hmm.
nurse, is understanding that the oncology cases I get, they're coming to me with cancer for their third time, their fourth
Hmm.
time, whatever it is, right? So finally, they've now come to me for the first time, but this is their third time having cancer. And I go, hey, that's the issue is not that you have cancer. The issue is why do you keep getting cancer? And this is where
Hmm.
I think blending the two so that we can really reverse these things and prevent them from coming back is critical. So kind of go into that, how LEU's helped that and where you think both of these sides for you marry together to produce the best results.
Definitely. So I will say it is a fire right now that's like lit in me to just learn everything I can because the thing is what you learn in the medical field, right, and in nursing is
Yeah.
I'm gonna say the eggshell of an egg, right? Like it's just the framework. And so they're trying to teach everything to you in a manner where, in 2, 4, 8 years you can finish. But the thing is they don't get down to the nitty gritty like LEU not only taught me to look at labs because I can read a lab and I can tell you what normal potassium, calcium, and all of that is. But the thing is, it teaches you how it correlates to every other thing, right? How your hormones correlate to your cholesterol, how your vitamin D correlates to your cholesterol. And so, with that, in the oncology setting, I was always, like, okay, they have this type of cancer, so this is the treatment that we're gonna go by, right? But then you get the treatment, you see them going through the treatment, and it's like, okay, well, now I got to give you Neupogen, which is like a cell booster to boost up your immunity because I just shot your immunity, right? Where in LEU, it's like, let me show you from the beginning how I can boost up your immunity naturally. So if you are ever in this situation, you're more stronger to fight it off. And so
No,
with
yeah.
that, in nursing, we never got what really can contribute to cell damage, what really can contribute to you having all of these type of diseases that in actuality are reversed. and can be reversed if you know how to go about it. And so it's almost like you have a disease. Here, let me help you how to get through it instead of reversing it. And
Mm,
so with that, seeing my sister-in-law, and she was at it for years through different GI doctors, different, internal medicine doctors. I mean, any type of doctor you can think of, she went and it was nothing. And in my mind, I'm like, how can the doctors figure this out? Then with my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law. And then it really hit home when it was my son. And I'm like, okay, he's not a guinea pig. We're not going on a fourth different type of ADHD medication. Something else has to be triggering this. And so
mm.
that's when everything really just, I had to look for answers outside the box. And that's what nursing really does. It's like they really try to fix something, but looking outside the box.
Yeah, I think too, one of the things that, because I had to go through like aggressive stage 3 kidney disease, like for myself when I was in the ER for it, liver disease, autoimmunes, thyroid disorders. I had rhabdomyolysis. I mean, I had like
Hmm.
9 things all at once: SIBO, H. pylori, candida, or fungus. And then I also had, major adrenal. I mean, I had everything. And and I remember when I was going through these things, I would ask the Lord, I'd be like, why am I going through this? And he said, because I want you to handle every client as if this was your own health issue. And
Hmm.
so I started noticing before I had, let's say, the autoimmune, I already had the thyroid stuff, but before I had autoimmune, if I had autoimmune clients, I would handle them very well, but I might not deal with it with according to the compassion that I would a thyroid case because I had never gone through it. So did they get success? Absolutely. But there was still a compassionate relationship on a
Hmm.
personal level that was multiplied by 100, even though that was already professionally done very well with me and my clients. It was just on steroids now because I personally went through it. And so I think when things really hit home, like, oh, now my son's involved with this
Hmm.
health issue, this, and this. Oh my gosh, I know what it's like when another mother comes to me and says they don't know what to do because their son's going through this. Is that compassion drives a whole new level of care. You know what I mean? And you can have the desire for the care, which like a lot of the medical field has. They do have the desire and the care, but they may not have the in-depth detail for detail knowledge. And then there's
Hmm.
some people that have the detail for detail knowledge, but they don't have the care. And so when you get to marry those two, I think that it becomes very beneficial. And I think probably nobody better than you gets to do that because you've been surrounded with people close to you that have had these issues and metabolic and chronic diseases. But you also do have a plethora of study and background and knowledge to really bring those two together. And I think that that's what gives you the head and shoulders above a lot of other practitioners or soon to be
Hmm.
practitioners. And so now with that said, let me ask you this. You've gone through the medical space very deeply and exhaustively, but now
Hmm.
you're learning the stuff you're learning. And so as you're learning this, what are some of the things where you go, man, you know what? Like, I am glad I did go through the medical space because having this background or this knowledge is really good. Or now, hey, this is connecting these dots or whatever. Do you see those kind of connections where you're like, man, I'm actually super glad that I did go through all of that?
Oh, definitely. Like I stated before, you go so into depth when you're teaching LEU that it gives us the why, the molecular reason why a cell needs this, or like your mitochondria needs this, compared to nursing, it's more generalized and say, hey, your potassium's high, your kidneys are going to, they're about to get shot if you don't like listen to it, or your heart. And so it's like, then it's like, okay, so what do I need to do? Instead of understanding the root cause. And so that is what really has like inspired me and put that fire in me to be like, there's more out there.
But it's
Like learning is going to be there no matter what. You just have to go
right.
and hunt and look for it.
Yeah, and I think you having the medical background that you do gives you a benefit because you get to come in where, sure, the details might be a little newer, but the concepts and the dots are not. Now they're just getting connected really well for you. Whereas a lot of the LAU students that come in, some of them have never even coached anybody before. So they're aspiring to be a practitioner or a coach or coming out
Hmm.
of college or whatever. So they're brand new. And then some people are seasoned, some people have been a coach for a while, some people are in the medical space. We have all ranges. But But those people that are brand new, none of these concepts are familiar. They haven't heard about any of these things. So not only are the connections new, but the dots themselves are new. For
Mhm.
you, the dots have already been there. Oh,
Yep.
potassium in kidneys. Oh, but I don't know why potassium in kidneys. But I do know potassium in kidneys. Like you get to have the dots, and now we just brought the line. So I think it enables you to learn a lot quicker
Hmm.
and connect those dots, which I think is awesome. So I mean, with that said, I mean, what do you want to end up doing now with your whole knowledge with the medical space and then what you're getting in functional and root cause approach work in the seven pillars? Like what would you love to ideally see for your future and where you feel like the gifting is for you? Because I think that there's a lot of like I've had a lot of nurses, I have a lot of nurses as clients. I think I have like four right
Hmm.
now. But you know, like I've probably had 2 dozen in the last year and a half, nurses, cardiac nurses, things like that. And they always seem to be the ones that are the most run down because the medical
Hmm.
field like runs nurses down. All of my medical people are the sickest that come to me. They're always the
Hmm.
sickest. So I try to fix up their schedule and say, hey, if you get an LEU, what if you could still do your passion, which is to help people genuinely, but you can do it on your own schedule, at your own time, online, fulfilling your desires, but in a way that's conducive to your health, your family, your marriage, and so forth. So I feel like this is probably going to hit a lot of people that are going to be listening that are in your position. So what do you see as kind of like, no, this is where I would like to go with it. This is, I would love to do X, Y, or Z. What does that feel like for you?
Honestly, after finishing LEU, I would really want to start actually being a functional coach to these people because, Nick, you know very well, especially in the Hispanic community, there are a lot of people that need help, especially with kidney disease, heart
Sure.
disease. And the problem is they haven't been exposed to really what the seven pillars are or how to even prevent these things, or reverse them. All they do is go to the doctor, go to the clinic, they give them some medication, and it's like here. But the education to really spend time with them is not there. And so for me to even help them and to even help parents with, kids that, may have ADHD or other types of diseases, that is that would be my happiness, all while, either being at home or, having an office, whatever it may be. But
Yeah.
honestly, it's true. And, I'll tell you this, before entering LEU, I was running on 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and people are like, man, how do you get up and just like go? And I'm like, I finally had to take a step back and listen
Mm.
to someone and say, this is not Monica. Monica is not this funky all the time. It's just your body's in survival mode, and that's
Yeah.
what it's used to. And I'm like, what? I'm like, no, but I'm like always like so happy and go lucky. And they're like, yeah, because you put your body through that. And so I really started like when, I got Eli sleeping better. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start doing it. I got my husband to sleep better. We're all doing it because all it is, it can be a benefit. Like there's nothing wrong with it, other than it being a benefit to your body and to your mind.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that it always amazed me, really starting back in 2023 when I was getting like I had a cardiac nurse. I have a cardiac nurse actually in Houston, but I had a cardiac nurse in California. Then I have another nurse right now that's in Houston. It's a male, and I had a medical student in Iowa, and I just had a bunch of these people working in the ERs and in the hospitals, and I was just like the from we I had people from up in their 60s and then medical students that were down like they were like 23 years old. All of
Hmm.
them across the board were totally, just very sick, very ill. One of them that was 22, she's a cardiac nurse, you know, wasn't having a period for 6 years and stage
Wow.
4 adrenal insufficiency and prediabetes and just a whole plethora of things. But I said, you know what? If I had your work schedule, I I'd be the same way. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
you're working 12 to 24-hour shifts and then you do that 3 or 4 days a week. And so I think that one of the things I've told these clients, I say, hey, listen, I know that you're in the medical space. I know this is your job. I understand that it's your livelihood. My job is not to beat around the bush. So I'm just going to tell you very frankly, if you continue this, your metabolic disease will get 10 times worse. And God forbid it will lead to cancer. because cancer
Hmm.
is not anything different from disease. Cancer is just a diseased state for a long period of time where you have a multi-system failure. Now you don't induce apoptosis. Your immune system is not oxygenated, right? Your liver is not detoxified. Like there's a lot of things, but it's coming from just ultimately disease states that lead to cancer 10 years down the road, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the road. And so I used to tell these people, I would say, hey, listen, I know it's your job and it's how you pay your bills, but you're going to have to choose right now. And so you're going to have to make a choice
Hmm.
of, I'm not telling you to quit your job, but what I am telling you is that you're going to have to go into your superiors and demand a more conducive work schedule. And some of those people that I've had a nurse that literally went in, lowered her days by like 2 or 3 days a week to where now she has a rule. She can only do 12-hour shifts and the
Hmm.
days have to be non-consecutive. So a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Friday, not in a row, because she was like, "Hey, I can't deal with this." And honestly, I'm losing more money on my health, spending towards my practitioner and everything,
Yeah.
and supplements and all that, than I'm actually making working. And I said, "Yeah,
Hmm.
imagine if you could save that $1,500 a month from supplements or labs or coaching or anything else, 2 grand a month. You're talking tens of thousands of dollars a year. And
Yeah.
so, and you're going to have a better sex drive, probably a better life of marriage and all of that kind of stuff. So I think, unfortunately, the medical system will not change in its demand as far as what it requires from people. I think it comes down to people like my clients or like yourself, where the medical system's never going to stop demanding that time from you. It's
Hmm.
your job to put a foot down and a boundary to say, well, I don't care if you're demanding this, I'm not doing this. And if that
Hmm.
means that I can't work here, then that's what that means. I'm going to have to go figure out how to do this somewhere else or start a practice online. And there's just so many ways to do this type of work where you're not locked down to a building or a certain superior or whatever, right? But I do think that that is something that people in your space are going to have to recognize, that you don't have to be the slave to what you're demanded, and you
Hmm.
are in charge of your health. And at the end of the day, when you're 90, 95, hopefully 90, 95, 100 on your deathbed, health, and you've lived a healthy life, or you might be sick at 70 or 75, you're going to look back and go, why was I so afraid? Why didn't I just demand more for my own life and
Hmm.
take charge of that? Like, you're going to say that one day. So why not just do it now? And I think that your space struggles a lot with that. I think every space struggles with that. But
Hmm.
I think that your space very much struggles with that because, unfortunately, 93% of America is metabolically diseased. So the hospitals, the ERs, the doctors, and the nurses, they're not going to not get bombarded. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So you have to practice pillar two and boundaries more than anybody. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep. And it's very true, during COVID season in 2021, that's when it really hit home because it was like we had nurses leaving because they were scared, right? And it's like, I understand, you want to protect your family, whatever it is. And it was like, okay, what are we going to do? And so they're like, okay, Monica, like you need to open up a COVID unit. I was like, okay. But, I did set boundaries to say, okay, I'll do this, but I'm not going to put extra time, right? Like, I still need to go home to my family. I need to be there for them. And so, like you said, asking for what you need goes a long way,
Yeah.
and I think sometimes nurses feel an obligation that they always have to be there for the patients. It's like, I'm the rescuer, I need to be there. But you're not abandoning them. You're just setting time, like just like we tell family members, like you need time to rest. Nurses need time to rest as well so they can actually do their job right.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, 100%. I think that what it really comes down to, I actually have another podcast I'm doing on this in a couple weeks, but it's called Pay Yourself First. And so one of the things that I tell nurses, well, yeah, actually the clients right now that I have, they're both nurses that I've been telling this to, but is you have to pay yourself first in the sense that financial wisdom tells us when we get paid, first you tithe, but
Hmm.
then after that, you pay God first, and then after that, you're the first person you pay. So I'm going to put 10 to 20% into some form of a savings account, and I've paid myself first. And then whatever I have left is what I need to make sure my lifestyle fits into. And if my lifestyle exceeds that, then that means I can't afford that lifestyle. And I just need to recognize that doesn't mean I go into what I pay myself and I try to make it work. No, it means you need to recognize you can only afford this in life right now. And so that's what you live in, right? Well, it's the same thing with health. And I think a
Hmm.
big problem that I see is medical and non-medical is people doing everything and then they try to see if they can squeeze in getting some steps in potentially. Maybe they might be able to ground once or twice a week, and they might be able to get in that 6 hours of sleep, and they might be able to really spend time with their spouse here or there. And so, one of
Hmm.
the things that I teach is you have to pay yourself first. So, what that looks like is get a schedule, get your calendar, and make it have zero things on it. It has nothing on it. You go there and you do a couple things first. The first thing is you mark out an 8 hour sleep window. Put that on
Hmm.
the calendar. Okay. If you sleep solid that 8 hours or not right now is irrelevant, but at least I'm going to give myself the opportunity in the window to where my body at least is able to. So
Hmm.
put the window down, and then 1 hour before and 1 hour after you put a window. You want 1 hour in the morning where you can calmly get out of bed, get some water, maybe read for 15 or 20 minutes, sit down with a cup of coffee. Like you need to have a not a cortisol spike. You need to calmly get in, do that.
Hmm.
You need to have 1 hour before bed where you are saying, hey, I'm going to slowly start winding down and doing these different types of things. So let's just say somebody's sleep window is going to be from 9 to 5. It's like, okay, great.
Hmm.
You wake up at 5. That means from 5 to 6, you need to be able to have just time slowly for you. And if you're going to bed at 9 and you're trying to be asleep by 9, that means starting at 8, you're not doing the dishes. You're not doing the laundry. You're not doing
Hmm.
those things. You're winding down. You're washing your face if you need to. You might shower. You might be reading a book, whatever it is. So that means really you have between the hours of 6 in the morning to 8 at night to do your thing. Here's the other thing. You
Hmm.
need to mark out a 60 to 90-minute window of you to have body movement. So you put that on your schedule and you say, okay, that's
Hmm.
here, time blocked in my schedule and in my calendar. And then I need to have like 20 to 30 minutes a day, if I can, 15 to 30 minutes a day of grounding with my family or something like that. And so you have to put these critical 7 pillar concepts on your schedule. And then you look at the rest of your schedule and you say, now what is left for me to be able to make sure that I work or make meetings, make money, go to my job, do whatever.
Hmm.
And the thing is, people are doing it backwards. They're
Yeah.
having their work and work, money. And then they're putting those other things in the back burner and the priorities are off. Your financial and lifestyle priorities are off. You need to pay yourself first in every area.
No, I definitely agree, Nick. And that's one thing, that even like a little bit before LEU, but LEU just like concrete, put the money on it was, setting boundaries and, it's okay to say no. You may get invited to different things, but, if it's during your time that, you spend for you or that, you're resting, it's okay to say no. Like if they say something, then let them say something. But
Right.
you come first, and that's what I really needed to realize to be there for my kids. Is like, okay, I don't have to say yes to everything, or like if the kids have like 5 birthday parties, like I don't have to RSVP to all of them. Like I just ask them, okay, which one you want to go to, and we'll go to that one because you're right. Going here to there and continuously just go go go. It's not healthy for anyone.
No, I mean, I even told me and Erica talk about this all the time, like with our son, is we want him to have community and like, like 1 or 2 seasons a year where he's like in a sport or something like that. But somebody brought up, hey, let's have him, you want to have him at least in like 2 sports at a time. And we said, heck freaking no. Absolutely not.
No.
I go, look, I did all that as a kid. I was doing 3 sports at a time and on the all-star teams. We were running. That is just a lifestyle, though, that puts the parents into such a rush mode. It's not healthy. It's not a good example. And it's not a matter of, oh, no, the kids need to have their childhood. No, you need to be able to manually slow down because what that's also going to do is it teaches the kids that when you are doing something, that one sport or that one job or that one task, to do it to 100%.
Hmm.
Too many times we're doing three things and we're half weighing all of them just to make all of them. You're not really going all in. And so, we've talked about that where we don't want to feel rushed on the weekends. Like we already work hard during the week. So if we're going to have sporting events like a soccer game on Saturday, okay, we'll go to the soccer game, but we want to be able to wake up in the morning and like relaxing and hanging out, and then afterwards we can go to his mama and papa's house, his grandparents' house, and hang out. We don't want this whole rush lifestyle. I don't want to feel like we're rushing home 4 nights a week from practice, and then we've got to get him in the bath. We've got to make sure he eats. We've got to give him, this, and then we've got to take care of ourselves. Like to me, it's just I think that it's a diseased mindset and it sets us up for so much rushing. And so I get most parents do it out of a good heart. They love their kids, they want their kids to be doing
Yeah.
this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, it's just not conducive to anything. So I think that these are all like really important concepts. And like I said, I think that you're gonna have such a tremendous influence amongst so many spheres, not only in the medical space, to be able to tell people, hey, we actually have another way that you can do your passion and you can be even more influential. Maybe we can talk to you about this, that, and the other, but you can also talk with clients. You can also meet with parents and tell them what that looks
Hmm.
like. You can like there's so many avenues of relatability that you personally have that other people don't have. And I'm excited to see as you continue to grow with LEU and do everything else, where that ultimately leads to, because you are one of those people that is flourishing in LEU, very much absorbing like a sponge. But like I said, I think such a blessing of that for you is that you have all this medical background where now you're not
Hmm.
learning the dots, you're learning the connections of the dots. And you're getting to now be able to be better at saying, hey, the medical field's not all bad and it's not all good. Why don't I chew the
Hmm.
meat? Why don't I chew the meat and spit out the bones and take that with me? And now it's like you're bringing in the gold and silver out of Egypt to now turn into a business or whatever it may turn into. And I think that you have that, which, like I said, most people, like myself, I never went through the medical field. So I don't have those things.
Hmm.
I got to learn from a lot of medical professionals, but there's a difference when you get to go through it to the degree that you have. And so I think those experiences are going to prove themselves to be very fruitful as you blend it with this root cause and seven pillar approach.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, no, definitely. One of the things that I really appreciate is the way you teach it. You break it down so simple and the analogies that you give, so people can really relate it and understand it. That's the thing that sometimes we miss, right? As in the medical field, in the nursing field, it's like we try to make it so complex when it really isn't. And so when you're going through all the lectures and you're teaching us and you're, giving the examples, people really relate it. And so that's one of the things that, I've stated to different coworkers because they're like, "Hey, how is this? Like, I see you posting it, and I see his post on Instagram. What is it?" And I was like, a lot of people, they have to have proof, right? Like I'll say like the science nerds that it's like, okay, like, yeah, I understand what he's saying, but where's the proof? And you do give that proof, right? Like you have all the journals and abstracts. And so it's like, there it is, guys. Like this is not something that just we just came up with. Like it's
Yeah.
legit.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things in the way that I've gone about things is number one, I have the scientific literatures in there just to relate to certain things. But the
Hmm.
reality is, and I've actually had certain doctors tell me the same thing, is the most powerful evidence we actually have is not scientific literatures or PubMed literatures, it's anecdotal.
Hmm.
And the reason being is because I have a lot of anecdotal evidence that became anecdotal before a scientific literature ever came out about it. Because you have to have anecdote in order for somebody to fund a scientific fund. You know what I mean? So anecdotal
Yeah.
always comes first. That's a fact. You know what I mean? Like you can't have the scientific studies without the anecdotal first saying, hey, this person responded this way. Maybe we should look into this and fund this study, you know?
Yep.
But the other thing is this, there are some studies that the medical field decides is not worth funding because there's no
Hmm.
ROI for them in the medical space once it's proven. And
Yep.
so that's another reason why, there's a lot of literatures out there that have proven that utilizing phytoestrogens to bind to estrogen receptor beta will stop menopausal symptoms just as good or even better than estriol prescription or whatever. Now,
Hmm.
is there enough scientific literature to where that a judge will stamp that? No, there's not. Is there scientific literature that says, hey, we have these anecdotal evidence, but it will say we do desire to have more evidence? Sure. But those are things where that doesn't bring an ROI for the medical field.
Hmm.
Because if you can heal something or reverse the issues of symptoms through the seven pillars in food, that's free of charge. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And so that's where I always tell people is the scientific literature is good, but it's just a perspective. And we need to make sure we have all of it because at the end of the day, if it works anecdotally and a doctor tells me otherwise, I don't care what the doctor says. These clients are getting
Hmm.
better. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
And so those are things that I think we definitely need to really consider. I did use the scientific literature to give me boosts on things to go, you know what, this even says this. This is what I was already thinking. Now let me capitalize on this or grab this or chew the meat and spit out the bones here or whatever it is. But I just think that I really do believe that the most powerful evidence is the anecdotal evidence because
Hmm.
anecdotal evidence, there's many anecdotes that will never find themselves published because it just doesn't fund certain things, but yet they're still the real deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. And when you can actually talk about, your anecdotes on yourself or on your family members, that goes even a long way because it's like, oh, I did see the results, like they did get better, and that's what people need to see. Unfortunately, when we talk about faith, faith you can't see. But in these instances, your anecdotals are your family members or your people they're gonna follow.
Well, and that's the gospel right there, where the disciples of Jesus even say, hey, listen, the medical professionals and the Sanhedrin and the legal council will not accept what we're saying, but I can only speak about the things that I have heard and seen. And
Hmm.
although I know it doesn't fit your bill, this person was paralyzed and now he's walking. And so I remember I
Yep.
got confronted in 2024 for somebody was kind of trying to come at me because of certain phraseologies I was using and they didn't want me to use those phrases. They said, "Hey, be careful of not to use the word cure or heal or, whatever." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, let me just ask you this then because this is my perspective. If somebody came to me with an autoimmune disease, like and a severe one at that, like myasthenia gravis or something like this, like if they came to me with this and they had this when they started with me, but now they no longer have it. I'm okay with not using those words, but what word would you like me to use? Because they had it and now they don't.
Yeah.
And it's like Jesus's disciples said, hey, I can only speak about the things which I've seen and heard. All I know is once I was paralyzed, but now I walk. And it's the same thing. And so just as it was condemned then, nothing is new under the sun. These seven pillars are the ways of the Lord that were found in scripture. Those same ways are always going to be condemned by somebody that it brings money or attention away from.
Hmm. No, correct. 110% agree.
So anyway, no, I think this is great, Monica. I'm like I said, just to close it for the audience and stuff, I'm so amped at where you're headed and your passions and the knowledge you already have and just the fruit that's going to come from all of this. We'll make sure that your stuff is in the information for people to find your accounts and things of
Yes.
that nature for social media and to be able to reach out to you with all of that if they have any questions, whether in the medical field, a client, a patient, whatever it may look like. But thank you so much for joining and just for everything that you're doing. I'm just excited to see where you go with it all.
Thanks, Nick. And like I said, continue to grow your LEU, promote it because honestly, people need to hear this, and like you said, if you have the passion to help people and get them better, man, go all in. That's all I can
Amen.
say is like go all in and do it.
Amen. Amen. Well, for the audience, thank you for tuning in and stay tuned for our next episode.